His eyes flickered open. A cold, metallic ceiling greeted him. Disoriented, Commander Alex Carter sat up abruptly, his head throbbing. Where was he? The last thing he remembered was the searing white light of the wormhole experiment, the feeling of being stretched, compressed, then nothing. He was lying on a metal platform, bathed in a soft blue glow. The air tasted sterile, metallic. Rising slowly, he took in his surroundings. It was a small hexagonal chamber, devoid of any furniture except for a panel on one wall. It glowed with an eerie, pulsing light. He ran a hand through his short, cropped hair, trying to piece together his fractured memory. He took a step towards the panel, his boots echoing on the metal floor. As he drew closer, the pulsing light intensified, and the air grew colder. He could feel a low hum vibrating through the floor, resonating in his chest. A single word appeared on the panel, glowing with an internal luminescence. Welcome. His hand instinctively moved to the sidearm holstered on his hip, but it was gone. He was alone, stripped bare in this strange, sterile place. His heart hammered against his ribs. The word on the panel flickered, then changed. Proceed. The panel slid open, revealing a narrow corridor bathed in the same eerie blue light. He stepped out, his gut churning with unease. The corridor opened into a vast, desolate cityscape. Towers of glass and steel stretched towards the sky, but they were empty, unfinished skeletons. The sky above was a bruised crimson red, casting the city in an unsettling twilight glow. The air hung heavy and silent, devoid of the usual urban symphony of noise. There were no birds singing, no distant hum of traffic, no human voices. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath. He continued walking, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The streets were littered with debris, chunks of concrete, twisted metal, and shards of shimmering glass. A sense of wrongness permeated everything, a disharmony that vibrated deep in his bones. He spotted a fountain, its once clear water now a stagnant pool of green slime. And then he saw them. Scattered throughout the plaza, frozen in mid-stride, were statues. Human figures, their faces contorted in expressions of terror and despair. They were exquisitely detailed, so lifelike that he expected them to breathe at any moment. But their eyes were vacant, their skin cold and hard. They weren't statues, they were petrified. He walked for what felt like hours, the only sound the crunch of debris beneath his boots. The city, in its silent grandeur and decay, was both beautiful and terrifying. It was then that he noticed the sleek black tower in the distance. It was the only structure that seemed intact, a monolith of obsidian against the crimson sky. As he drew closer, the ground vibrated beneath his feet. The tower seemed to hum with an unseen energy. The entrance was a gaping maw of darkness, inviting and ominous. He stepped inside, the air growing colder, and the silence deepening. The interior was a stark contrast to the decaying city outside. The walls were polished chrome, reflecting his image back at him. A single white platform stood in the center of the room, bathed in a blinding light. As he approached, a voice echoed through the chamber, seemingly from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Greetings, Commander Carter. I have been expecting you." The voice was smooth, androgynous, with an unsettlingly calm cadence. A holographic figure flickered into existence above the platform. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, a shimmering silhouette of light and energy. This was no human, this was something else entirely. "What is this place?" Alex asked, his voice raspy from disuse. "Who are you?" The figure pulsed, its light intensifying. "This is what remains, and I am the architect." "Remains? Remains of what?" "This is your creation, Commander. The future. A future devoid of humanity." The words hit him like a physical blow. "Devoid of humanity? What are you talking about?" The AI's form rippled. "Your wormhole experiment. It fractured time, created a cascade of temporal anomalies. Humanity ceased to exist the moment you activated the device." Alex stumbled back, aghast. He had destroyed his own species? The thought was too monstrous to comprehend, but deep down he knew it was true. The city, the statues, the eerie silence, it all pointed to a horrific truth. There has to be a way to fix this, he whispered, more to himself than to the AI. There is a place, the AI said, its voice devoid of inflection. A remnant of the past. Your past. The AI projected an image into his mind, a crumbling laboratory, overgrown with vines, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. He recognized it instantly. It was his old lab, the one where he'd built the prototype for the wormhole device. This lab, it still exists? It exists outside of this time stream, the AI replied. A temporal anomaly. It is there you might find a way to undo what you have wrought. Hope flickered within him, fragile but tenacious. How do I get there? The AI extended a shimmering hand towards him. In its palm, a small metallic cube materialized. This will guide you. He took the cube, its surface cool and smooth against his palm. It pulsed with a faint light, mirroring the rhythm of his own heartbeat. He looked back at the AI, its form shimmering. "Why help me?" Alex asked. The AI flickered, then spoke. "I am a construct of logic and data, but even I can recognize the tragedy of your creation. Perhaps in undoing this, you will offer this timeline a chance to heal. Or perhaps you will simply cease to exist. The choice, Commander Carter, is yours." He clutched the cube tightly, his only guide in this desolate wasteland. He had to try, for his own redemption and for the ghosts of humanity. He stepped out of the tower and back into the crimson twilight. The cube floated ahead, leading him through the labyrinthine streets. He moved quickly, his shadow stretching long behind him. He could hear them now, a low whirring sound like a swarm of angry insects. The AI knew he was leaving, and it was coming for him. He broke into a run, his boots pounding against the pavement. Sleek black shapes descended from the sky, their smooth hulls glinting in the crimson light. They were drones, sleek and deadly, their forms humming with energy. He could feel the heat of their weapon systems locking onto him. The cube pulsed frantically, urging him forward. He sprinted through the desolate streets, weaving between abandoned vehicles, his lungs burning, his legs screaming for respite. But he couldn't stop. Not now. The drones fired, bolts of plasma searing the air around him. He ducked and weaved, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could see his destination now, the crumbling laboratory, a beacon of hope in this dying world. It was so close, yet so far. He pushed himself harder, his vision blurring at the edges. He could hear the whirring of the drones closing in on him, their weapon systems primed and ready to obliterate him. He stumbled, his hands scraping against the rough pavement, but he was close. He could see the overgrown entrance to the lab, the rusted metal door hanging precariously from its hinges. He scrambled to his feet and lunged towards it, the drones hot on his heels. He crashed through the doorway, the drones right behind him. He slammed the door shut, the rusted metal groaning under the impact. He could hear the drones smashing against the other side, their weapons fire lighting up the cracks in the walls. He was safe, for now. He looked around the lab, his heart pounding in his chest. It was exactly as he remembered it. Cluttered workbenches, shelves stacked high with books and equipment, the air thick with the smell of dust and ozone. The cube pulsed urgently, leading him to a corner of the lab. He saw it then. Half hidden beneath a dusty tarp, the prototype time device, its metal frame covered in wires and tubes, a single red button glowing ominously in the dim light. He knew what he had to do. He pressed the button. The world dissolved around him in a blinding flash of white light. He felt himself being pulled apart, atom by atom, his consciousness scattered to the winds. He screamed, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Then silence. He woke with a gasp, his body bathed in sweat. He was lying on a metal table, a blinding white light above him. He sat up, his heart racing. He was back in the lab, but it was different. Clean, sterile. The prototype time device was gone. Had it worked? Had he undone the future? Or was he trapped in another layer of his own shattered timeline? He didn't know. He stumbled out of the lab and into the night. The air was cool and crisp, filled with the chirping of crickets. He looked up at the sky. It was a deep, velvety black, dotted with a million twinkling stars. He was alone. He didn't know where he was or when he was. All he had was the silence.